So, hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Unpacking Possibility with me, your host, Dr. Tracy Stein. I am so happy to be here with you today, as always. And today we're going to talk about something that I think is really common and therefore especially important to address. And that is how to feel the fear about achieving your goals or the things you want to do. Feel the fear and do it anyway. It's a saying you hear all the time, but it's easier said than done, right? When there's something you really want to do, it's very easy for all of us to get in our own way, to get in our heads, overthink all of the reasons why we cannot do these things that we want to do. And what happens is days, months, weeks, years go by, and we don't do these things that are important to us. So what do I mean by that? A lot of times, you've probably heard the saying, it's easier to stay with the devil you know, right, than the devil you don't. And a lot of times that's the position we continue putting ourselves in. So we tell ourselves that a goal that we have will be too hard, or that we might fail, or that we will fail, or that other people won't support us, or they won't get us, or people like us don't normally achieve these things, and so forth. Most people have kind of a pre-recorded script or litany of sayings and automatic thoughts that pop into their heads every time they try to step outside of their comfort zone to do something that would make their lives better. Now, today I want to talk about a few reasons for that. I won't go into detail about hypnosis, but it's something that I do a lot of and that I talk a lot about. And in a subsequent episode, I'll address that more, the mechanics of hypnosis and how we can honestly hypnotize ourselves or be hypnotized into believing that we can't do certain things. Now, the problem with that is that if we believe we can't do something, chances are we'll either sabotage it consciously or not so consciously, or we won't even take the chance to do it. Or we'll do it kind of in a half-hearted way. So I don't know about you, but almost all of us have had messages from the time we were young about what we could do or should do and what we couldn't do or shouldn't do, right? And it's not only about things that people would generally agree are things best to avoid, but about things that may be possible for us, right? We all have had parents or teachers or other family members or friends even who may be well-intentioned, maybe not, but maybe, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt, say things because they think they're going to protect us from doing something that we can't do or that we're not likely to be able to accomplish. So I'm going to give you some examples of these types of things. They run the gamut, right, from things in our personal life and interpersonal relationships to career choices, hobbies, and so forth. See if any of these relate to your experience or the thing that you feel like you can't achieve for yourself. So some people grow up with the message that, work is supposed to be difficult and therefore probably not enjoyable, and that you're going to work a really long time, hope to save for the future, but that your day-to-day life probably will feel a bit like a grind. And of course, most people have had that experience at some point, but many, many people find jobs or create jobs for themselves. They become entrepreneurs, or they just make steps to do things that make them happy, right? But if you believe that you cannot, or that everything that might get you out of your rut would be too hard or not doable, you won't do it. You just won't. So jobs are a common example. It could be learning to play a musical instrument or a sport, or taking up a hobby that maybe your family doesn't get, like acting or music or something that they think seems impractical. I'm just naming things. And your situation might be completely different. We can also have these things in our personal lives, right? These unconscious or semi-conscious scripts or movies in our minds that tell us who we are and what we deserve and what we are likely to be able to have and not have. And this can extend to things like dating or finding a good romantic partner. If you get the message early on that there's something wrong with you, you're not okay as you are, you're not lovable, whether that's explicitly communicated or just communicated to you because maybe you've had a lot of unwarranted criticism growing up and so forth, you may very well likely keep choosing relationships that are the opposite of what you think you want for yourself. On a subconscious level, you'll keep choosing people who reaffirm that message that you don't deserve to be treated well. The conscious message you might tell yourself is, there's just nobody great out there, right? But if subconsciously you believe that people like you don't wind up in healthy relationships where they're treated really well and they're mutually respectful, it's going to be much harder to sustain one of those relationships if you even cultivate that to begin with. So lots and lots of things scare us because they're different, even if they're better. So the problem is, even if you're trying to do something that feels like on the surface it isn't explicitly for you, because most of us feel like it's easier to do something that will help other people. I'm going to give you an example. I'm thinking of my students in my course that I've taught for years. My students develop wellness workshops that are supposed to help a variety of different people. They're really motivated by a desire to do good and to bring their talents and skills to the world. But even really smart, capable people can get really nervous about doing that, about bringing their gifts to the world. And from the outside, we might not know that. Famous people, lots of famous people actually who've been super, super successful on every level have spoken about having horrible stage fright. Like Barbra Streisand is actually one of the first people I can ever remember talking about being nervous about doing something that obviously she was eminently skilled to do, perform in front of a live audience. Who would even know, right, that she had stage fright? Because we'd say this is one of the best voices in the world, then and now. Many of you probably listen to the Ed Mylett show. It's literally the most popular podcast on earth, and for good reason. If you've ever listened, and if you haven't, you certainly should. Ed Mylett, who is somebody who's earned or has a net worth of nearly $1 billion with a B, did not grow up with money, did not grow up in the easiest of circumstances, and will say, despite all of his success, there are times when he still struggles with self-esteem or still has anxiety before he goes into a room for a business meeting and so forth. So I really admire when people share their stories because it's so normalizing and humanizing of our tendency to be frightened of going for the goals that are important to us, right? So what can you do? Because you already know a little bit where those can come from. Some people are also just more kind of constitutionally a little bit anxious or shy to begin with, but oftentimes our belief that we can't do something is more than that. So I'm going to give you 4 tips to help you to do what you need and want to do, goal-wise or whatever, even if you're feeling fear. Now, the reason I just want to emphasize this before I get to those tips, if you think that you have to wait till you are not afraid or 100% ready to do something, to achieve a goal, to go after it, it's not how it works. You'll never feel 100% until you actually start doing something. And again, like I mentioned, there are people who are wildly successful by anybody's definition who still feel a little anxious sometimes. I mean, the good news is the more you do something, the less anxious you'll probably be and the more short-lived that anxiety will be. But similarly, waiting till you have perfected the thing you want to do before you pursue it, no such thing as perfect. Everybody's definition of perfect is different. And it's by trial and error, things going well in some cases and things going less well in other cases. That's how we learn. So it's really important to get out of our heads and into the world, set some goals and start making some efforts toward them. So one thing that is, these are my 5 tips starting now. One thing that's really a good thing to do is not only identify the goal and get clear on it, maybe get clear on why you want to achieve that goal. And I don't care if it's becoming a musician, an athlete, starting a business, finding a new job, finding a new partner, whatever that is. But have a sense of what it is and why you want it. And also start thinking about the steps you would need to take. Find the goal, have that be the endpoint, and work backwards, right? Because everything we do almost is done step by step. That's just the way most things unfold. And that's actually great news, because you don't have to go from 0 to 100 miles per hour in one instant. You get to accelerate at your own pace. The second thing, to help you feel the fear and do it anyway and survive the fear, right? Because we all are afraid that we can't survive the fear. It'll be too overwhelming, this, that, and the other thing. Not true. Have a centering practice. Now, I've spoken about meditation and mindfulness specifically because there's so much data showing that it works. It works to alleviate anxiety, to help you get less anxious from the beginning. So you'll be less reactive and more centered, but you'll recenter more quickly even if you become anxious. But that's not for everybody. Some people will say, I don't like meditation, or I find it too challenging. So you could listen to things like guided imagery. We'll get to that later. You can do yoga. You can walk. You can engage in some sort of reflective prayer. Find what works for you to recenter your emotions so that you feel like you can see the bigger picture and feel calmer. And the more you practice those things, the more helpful they tend to be more quickly. Number 3, and this kind of relates to number 1 because it's its own type of centering practice, but it has additional benefits, is use movement. Now, exercise is good for you in a number of ways. Some of you may already know that exercise is actually quite good for the brain in a number of ways. It increases blood flow to the brain. It increases the number, believe it or not, of neural connections, and it can help people calm down more quickly. That those frontal areas of your brain that really benefit from exercise are helpful for planning, logic, stepping back, seeing the bigger picture. And that's essential when you want to get down from this catastrophic level of anxiety that stops us from doing anything and move that down to size. So that could be jogging, any sort of cardiovascular exercise, weight training. It doesn't even have to be cardiovascular. There's data showing weight training is helpful as well. Yoga, again, counts. Walking, swimming, biking, you name it. But do something with your body. I'm going to point something out about exercise that I don't know how often people point it out, but you should try it. Don't take my word for it. If you are feeling anxious and you start exercising, you will notice that it is impossible to sustain the same level of anxiety. It just is. You can't do it. As you get your body moving and your heart rate up, you're discharging extra energy, extra tension. So again, don't take my word from it. Notice what you notice. And in fact, I'm going to give you a little assignment. Have your goal in mind before you exercise. Sit down, take a few minutes, write or think about your goal, and allow the things you normally push away, the fears and the worries, to come to mind. Let the anxiety creep up, because it does anyway, right? Pushing it away, we all know, doesn't actually get rid of anxiety. Let the anxiety come up and then go out and move your body. Notice what happens as you are exercising to that level of anxiety, that subjective level of distress. So you can actually rate it on 0 to 10, 0 being no distress and 10 being the most stress you've ever felt. Hopefully that's not where you are about your goal before. And then exercise and notice during and after how you feel. And I'm telling you, that is one of the quickest, easiest, and most inexpensive ways to get your anxiety down rapidly. Okay. So number 4 is journaling. Now, journaling could be simply writing your thoughts and feelings down. It could be stream of consciousness writing, whatever comes to mind, and setting a timer for 5 minutes, or doing what prolific author and playwright Julia Cameron says. She's famous for talking about the morning pages, getting up and the first thing, just writing 3 pages longhand of whatever comes to mind, even if it's, I don't know what to write and I'm not sure why I'm doing this. You will find not only does your anxiety go down, you'll probably get a lot clearer on your goal and a lot of other things, but your creativity and intuition will almost certainly be enhanced by this process. It's something that's been reported again and again and again, and it's true. But another thing you could do if you want to be structured with your journaling is write down the story of your successful journey to your goal. Now, why am I saying that? We talked a few minutes ago about having a movie in your mind, a trance state. Again, I'll talk more about this in another podcast episode, but our minds create these stories about who we are, what we deserve, what we're capable of, whom we'll attract, and so forth. They do. We all have these kind of ideas of ourselves, and some of them may not be accurate, or they may not even be what we want for ourselves. You have absolutely nothing to lose and everything to gain by just writing down the story of your journey as if it is happening exactly the way you'd like it to, about the steps you're taking, how incredible it feels to achieve your goal, whom you'll meet along the way, how you feel, how you carry yourself. It could be what outfit you're wearing, doesn't matter, just go with it. What you'll find is that if you do that for 30 days, you will 100% start having a lot fewer negative thoughts, and they won't be nearly as loud, and a lot more clarity and enthusiasm and excitement rather than anxiety about working toward your goal. And hopefully you'll start working toward your goal along the way. Now, number 5 kind of relates to the things we've talked about, but it's deliberate mental rehearsal. Now, guided imagery, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, is a great way to do that, because especially if you're somebody who feels like it's hard to just meditate and do focused breath awareness, guided imagery offers you a journey that is affirming, health supportive. It's designed to help you get in the mind space of, again, changing that movie in your mind and rehearsing achieving your goal before you actually do. And we know that guided imagery is so helpful for so many things, including achieving goals, including decreasing anxiety and worry, including enhancing feelings of confidence and competence. Because honestly, chances are the things you're afraid of doing, you can do. And I wouldn't just say that. It's actually true. Again and again, I've seen people come in who are worried about, taking the steps to do something that when they finally do it, they realize that they had worried way more than they needed to. All right. And you've had that experience, right? Who hasn't? Mental rehearsal, though, in our minds, everything feels real. It's very hard for your mind to distinguish the difference between what you think and those repetitive thoughts, especially, and what's actually going on in your real objective outside world. And in fact, those movies in your mind can actually feel more real than the reality outside of you. And in fact, that's part of why we wind up so anxious to begin with. The movies in our minds usually are much scarier and less optimistic than what's actually happening for us or what's actually possible for us. It's true. So using mental rehearsal, guided imagery, you can work with a provider and do it in someone's office, in a therapist's office, but you can also find a whole bunch of different recorded guided meditations and audio programs out there. I have a ton, you know that, but there are thousands and thousands of different recordings that can help you with this process. And another option, one that's completely free, is you could record your own voice on your phone. Just record, even if it's 5 minutes, of the journey you've written about, your journey to success. Really stepping into the feeling, talking about how wonderful it feels. And it's okay if it feels kind of corny to do that at first, doesn't matter. You're the only one who knows you're doing it. And I won't tell. So those are the 5 tips. So break your goal down into smaller, achievable steps. Number 2, have a centering practice. Number 3, get moving, and especially get moving when you notice you're feeling anxious. Number 4, journal. Journal and write the story of your successful achievement and allow yourself to feel wonderful doing it. And number 5, engage in mental rehearsal, either on your own, with guided imagery, with imagery you create. Really doesn't matter. But take those steps today, and I guarantee you, you're going to start not only feeling better, doing better, but you really will be living better before you know it and achieving your goal. So anyway, I hope this is helpful. So wonderful to be with you as always. If you like the episode and the show, please like, share, subscribe, leave me a comment. Let me know how you're doing. And until next time, as always, be well.